Hi guys, I'm Libertman, forced to be alone but free to decide how to live it. Today's episode is about something nobody explains in full, yet everyone suffers from. Why modern society has become a chaotic soup of incompatible personalities, incompatible maturity levels, incompatible worldviews, and incompatible expectations, all mixed together as if they belonged to the same psychological category. This mixing is not accidental. It's the perfect recipe for confusion, conflict, and collapse in our society. And today I want to introduce a new phrase to understand why. That is mix and conquer. Not divide and conquer, because if you want people to remain divided, exhausted, confused, and unable to form stable relationships, whether romantic, social, or even political, the best strategy is simple: mix people from completely different psychological segments with different maturity levels, different personality structures, and different developmental histories, and let them assume they are all the same. When everything is mixed, nobody can communicate, nobody can cooperate, nobody can build anything meaningful, and nobody can understand each other. And what remains is exactly what we see today: an ocean of noise, projection, misinterpretation, aggression, misunderstandings, and disconnection. To understand this clearly, we need to separate three layers that modern society constantly confuses. In the first place, we have maturity level, whether it's high level or a low level. In second place, personality typology, the four macro groups of the C4PC model that we use. And in third place, Ken Wilber's four-quadrant model, the lenses through which any problem must be analyzed in full. When these three levels are not distinguished, everything collapses into the same pot. People end up attacking the wrong targets, blaming the wrong causes, and assuming everyone belongs to the same category, when in fact they belong to completely different human segments. So I will try to build this map as clear as possible. Let's go on with the four segments of this mix and conquer. To understand the modern relational crisis, especially between men and women, we must classify the population, the worldwide population, into four combined segments. These segments are the combination of maturity level, high or low, and personality compatibility, compatible or incompatible. These two axes alone generate a four-segment structure that explains 95% of human relational outcomes. So let's break them down. So the first segment is the one that combines high level of maturity with compatible personalities. This is the rarest population segment, but also the only one capable of building stable, reciprocal, and long-term adult relationships. This segment includes men and women with high emotional maturity, high self-awareness, people with accountability that provides stability to our relationships, long-term thinking, capacity for reciprocity, key for any adult reciprocal relationship, and most importantly, the C4PC personality structures that complement each other. This is the ideal segment for romantic relationships, marriage, lifelong partnerships, friendships, business partnerships, and any creative collaboration. These people can adapt, communicate, negotiate, apologize, repair, and grow together. They are not ruled by impulse or ideology. They are ruled by consciousness and alignment. So, when it comes to the proportion in the global population, we find that this segment is extremely small, roughly 5%, maximum up to 7 to 8% maximum, depending on country. But this is a worldwide estimation. This is the segment everyone is looking for, but yet almost nobody belongs to. So that is a key number. I mean, consider that 100% of men historically looks for women that belong to this segment of 5% of the worldwide population, that are the only one capable of having this mature, reciprocal, long-term romantic relationships. So if 5% is the total, so we have 2.5% of women, of the total women in the world. From that number, from that 2.5%, we need to discount the women from the age range from 18 to 35, and so on and so on. So that gives you like an idea of the level of difficulty in the pursuit of the right woman to have a genuine and real relationship, because the number is extremely small. Then we have the second segment that is comprised of the people with high maturity, high level of maturity, but with incompatible personality types. So these are good people, but with the wrong configuration. Relationships that never align in time, that arrive too late, people who meet each other too late in time, with different lifestyles, or with simply a different emotional architecture, that are not the best for living together or sharing projects together. And these men and women also have high maturity, like the first segment, and have good intentions. They possess emotional stability and also solid values, like the first segment. But their personalities and life trajectories or circumstances are incompatible. So that means different life projects. One of them wants to have children, the other does not. Different temperaments, different attachment patterns, different timing. One wants children, the other doesn't, as I already said. One has already lived an entire life cycle with someone else. One carries too much relational baggage. Sometimes both discover each other too late in life, not in the right moment, that it was 20 years ago in their 20s. These relationships are often respectful, admirable, emotionally deep, but impractical for long-term union. So for men especially, this segment often feels like, well, it's a good woman, but at the wrong time, with too much past and too little to offer now compared to what she could have offered 20 years ago. So this sounds harsh, but it's reality. Men do not want to compensate for the mistakes, wreckage, and emotional exhaustion produced by decades of someone else's choices. So the proportion in population is roughly 10%, maximum to a 15% of worldwide population. These people can be great friends, though, but they rarely become durable partners. Then in the third segment, we find people with low level of maturity, but that they have compatible personalities. This is the historical majority of worldwide population, the people who built most families across centuries. These are men and women who have low to moderate maturity, are highly influenced by culture, by religion, by social pressure, by norms. They make decisions impulsively or reactively. They live constantly in present moment. They don't plan long term. They don't analyze economic conditions or social context. They just follow the flow. But their personalities are compatible enough to cohabit, to reproduce and form families. Historically, this segment produced most of humanity. They marry young, have several children, separate, remarry, repeat cycles, live by instinct, by community pressure, follow obligation, and they live by tradition. The proportion in global population is around minimum 60% to 70% of worldwide population. This is the mass of the species. Not ideal, not disastrous, just average human behavior. And then we have the fourth segment, that is the people who have low level of maturity and on top of that incompatible personalities. This is the most dangerous segment that implies dysfunction, conflict, abuse, and even crime. These people have low maturity, high impulsivity, poor emotional regulation, low empathy, little future orientation, and personality structures that clash dramatically. This is where you find toxic relationships, violence, manipulation, crime, addiction, chronic instability, and different cycles of destruction of any kind. The proportion in people is around 10%, maximum to up to 15% of worldwide population, depending on culture. This is where social collapse comes from, and all the terrible news you hear on TV, on radio, and on internet comes from this, from people that belong to this segment. That causes all the trouble. So let's see why society is collapsing, and let's see how everything is mixed. In modern culture, we treat all these four segments I have described as if they were one single group. They treat people as if all people belong to one group. We give the same dating advice to segment 1 and segment 4. That is, people that have a high level of maturity with compatible personality to form mature relationships, to people who belong to the segment that have a low level of maturity with dysfunctional and incompatible personalities to form any relationship with. So we assume a woman from segment 3 behaves like a woman from segment 1. We assume men from segment 4 that will think like men from segment 2. We assume people with incompatible personalities can simply communicate better and overcome fundamental structural mismatch. We assume maturity level is irrelevant, and we blame individuals for systematic quadrant level causes. So this confusion creates projection in relationships, misjudgment, false accusations, wrong expectations, emotional injustice, and as a result of this, in the long term, social fragmentation. Because we are having expectation and demands to people who belong to the wrong segments that we are looking for. That we all are looking for people that belong to segment 1, but that is only 5% of human population and 2.5% of men and women respectively. But the pool of people from which we find in dating apps, in single events, or they all belong to the other 95% of people that belong to the other 3 segments that are the ones who are available. So, most importantly, it makes good men and women invisible because they are diluted inside the ocean of incompatible segments. And so this is the mix and conquer. So let's describe a little bit more about this problem we have with with segment 1, that is the one that we all look for. People who belong to this segment. Let's apply all this to relationships in the last 20 years, in 2005. Men with high maturity, with high integrity, with good values, with stability, with long-term orientation, with capacity to love deeply, are all looking for segment 1 women, for women who belong to the segment 1, the same as them. But here is the problem. Women from segment 1 are removed from the emotional marketplace extremely early. By 23, 25, 27 years old, they are gone. They are all married or committed, already starting families, not available anymore in the market. So you don't get to know them. Or when you get to know them, you find that they are married, committed, and starting their families. And why? Because every man from all segments, from the 4 segments, but especially mature men, wants them. And wants that type of woman in order to build a long-term romantic relationship, and even more if you plan to build a family. And because they themselves search for stable long-term partners early in life. So this produces a brutal reality for men over 30 or 35. The woman they are searching for do not exist in the dating pool anymore, because they are already taken, and long time ago, if you are a millennial of 35 years old or 40 years old. The only exceptions, and this is key, are women who were originally segment 1 or belonging to segment 1, but married the wrong man, or got hurt, or got divorced, or already have children, or lost emotional vitality, or carry deep wounds from many previous relationships, or that she has accumulated a regret of their past decisions, or are exhausted, or have very little to offer now compared to what they once could 15 years ago or 20 years ago when she was 20. This means that when a man today finds a segment 1 woman, but at age 35 or 40, what he's actually finding is a segment 1 origin, but a segment 2 or 3 in the present moment, and a segment 4 baggage from the past. So it's like that analogy of buying an old car with a lot of mileage. It's the car that you were looking for, but in a delayed and wrong timing in your life and already used. And this is why for a high maturity man, it is not convenient, nor fair, nor wise to take the emotional, financial, and psychological burden of this situation. He was searching for her, but 20 years ago, not now. Now it's too late, and the cost is too high to take her, but now. So there is a false hope of getting this elite compatibility situation after you are 35 years old, or when women are 35 years old and onwards. Every good man eventually realizes something. When a woman from this segment 1 appears after 35, 40 years old, she appears as a friend, a wise acquaintance, a good human being, but no longer as a potential partner. She's simply not what he needs for a long-term romantic project. For some personality types, she may be a comforting presence. Yeah, that's true. For others, she is completely irrelevant. If they are looking to build a family together, have children, and build from scratch. But she's no longer a viable option for building a life from zero, knowing each other from the beginning, having the same experiences together. And this creates a profound male loneliness. Not because men cannot find women, but because they cannot find segment 1 women available. This explains 80% of modern male frustration. So, up to this point, I have described the problem with the mix and conquer. And by the way, it's a good moment, if you haven't already, to hit the like button. Please like this video if you are enjoying it, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. That helps a lot to allow me to make more of this content and continue with the channel. So let's explore now how each of the C4PC macro group of men evaluates the possibility of dating a segment 1 woman who is divorced and or has children. Let's have this. Let's imagine this situation and to see how each of the personality types reacts to this situation of a woman of 35 years old or 40 that has high level of maturity and has a personality type that is compatible with yours and presents in your life, but now with 35 and 40 years old. Imagine that. So which group still consider it worthwhile and why? Which groups categorically rejected and why? So how this mix and conquer explain modern dating conflict will be easier to understand with this example. So let's see also how men can reposition themselves in a world where true compatibility is nearly extinct. If you do the numbers, is an statistical issue. And let's see how to possibly reduce emotional injustice toward good men navigating this distorted relational landscape. So at the beginning I started to map the 4 population segments that are created by the combination of 2 variables: maturity levels and personality compatibility. And so I show you how modern society mixes them in one chaotic pot or pool, generating the relational collapse we live in today. So I also explain why segment 1 women, the only women truly compatible with high maturity men, disappear from the relationship market extremely early, leaving good men in their 30s or 40s without any realistic romantic options. So now let's go on analyzing by this mix and conquer topic with an example of how would each of the C4PC male macrogroups respond differently when meeting a segment 1 type of woman at age 35 or 40 years old, who is already divorced, with children, wounded, or emotionally tired. Let's see which type of men still considers entering that relationship and why. Which types of men never will and why, and what this mix and conquer reveals about modern dating dynamics. We have this scenario, right? This exceptional segment 1 woman arrives to your life, but too late. A high maturity man finds a woman who has a good heart, that has emotional intelligence, that has stable values, and that would have been an ideal partner, but at 20 years old, at 25 years old. But now at 35 or 40 years old, she is divorced, she has 1 or more children, she carries the wounds of a failed marriage, sometimes many other partners and boyfriends. She regrets her past choices. She's emotionally and energetically diminished from the version of herself of 15 to 20 years ago. She wants a fresh start, but cannot offer one to you as a 35 years old or 40 years old man. So this woman belongs to segment 1 by origin, but she's a segment 2 or segment 3 by the present condition, like the used car, and often carries segment 4 baggage from the past by the partner that she chose. So this is the paradox. She's exactly the type of woman high maturity men always wanted, but she no longer exists in the form they needed her to be. So now I will analyze how each of the C4PC macro group of men responds to this situation. Remembering that each macro group has different needs, processing styles, attachment tendencies, and different life architectures, right? So this means that response to this scenario is not the same. So let's start breaking it down firstly with the internal rationals men, who are the philosophers, the analysts, the independent thinkers, introverted, structured, self-contained type of men. So how they see this situation of finding this woman but at this stage of their life? Well, internal rational men value logical fairness, coherence, reciprocity, and long-term structural alignment. For them, the equation is simple. If she was not available when I needed her, and now brings a past that imposes emotional and financial cost, the trade is not fair. Internal rational men cannot romanticize the situation. They think in systems, in proportions, cost benefits, and life architecture. They don't get hypnotized by emotional narratives. So would they accept the segment 1 but divorce with kid woman? Almost never. Because they don't want to raise another man's children. They don't want to be emotionally responsible for someone else's consequences. They don't want to compromise their autonomy. And they are extremely selective and slow to attach. For the internal rational man, entering that relationship is illogical, unfair, a net negative investment, and a sacrifice incompatible with his identity. So, internal rational men are the least likely to accept this scenario because they prefer solitude over emotional imbalance. So let's see now the case of the external rational men. They are the builders, the doers, the winners who create a structure in the external world, a type of man. So how they see the situation? External rational men value order, efficiency, stability, practicality, legacy. So for them, the key question is, does this relationship support the life I'm building, or does it create complication and entropy? A woman with heavy past baggage represents financial risk, emotional unpredictability, divided loyalties, less capacity to contribute, more maintenance than reward. So, would they accept her? Well, only in rare cases, such as if the woman's children are grown and independent, if she brings resources, network, or concrete benefit, if she's exceptionally cooperative and stable, if she requires very low emotional maintenance. But with these traits, we are talking about men of 45 years old or older, because or even the ones willing to be sugar daddies, because there are no available women of this kind in their 20s. So, otherwise, external rational men also reject this hypothetical scenario, not out of emotion, but out of practical strategic alignment. So external rational men are unlikely to accept unless there is a clear benefit and low cost. In the case of the internal emotional men, there are the artist, the introspector, the introspective men, the deep feelers, they seek connection, authenticity, and symbolic meaning. How they see this situation? Well, the internal emotional men are the most vulnerable to emotional narratives like, oh, she suffered a lot, she just wants peace now in her life, she appreciates me more than those men in her past. Their danger is idealization. They tend to feel empathy for her wounds. They see her past as part of her beauty. They tend to believe that they can heal together, or they tend to over-empathize emotional resonance over practicality in a potential relationship. So would these men accept her? Well, yes. They are the most likely to enter such a relationship. Not because it is beneficial, but because they fear loneliness. They are prone to this fear. They value emotional depth over structural compatibility. They feel honored that the mature woman chooses them. They underestimate long-term burdens because they fall in love quickly and they start only paying attention to the short term. They focus on poetic intimacy and not the logistic of the relationship. So they often end up carrying emotional weight that isn't theirs and feeling drained, losing their creative energy, living in a patchwork family system full of unresolved past. So internal emotional men are the most likely to accept this scenario and the most likely to suffer because of it, especially from the middle term onwards, when everything unfolds and there's no positive and all negatives. And finally, the external emotionals, that are the socially driven, the helpers, the men who seek connection, warmth, and a shared life. How they see the situation? Well, the external emotional men value belonging, companionship, emotional presence, and daily shared life. They fear isolation, emotional emptiness, and lack of support. So when they meet a late segment 1 woman, they often think, well, she's warm, she's stable, she's mature, this could work. Her kids, I can be a positive influence for them. Her past, everyone has a past. What matters is who she is now. So would they accept her? Yes. They are very likely to accept, more selectively than the internal emotional men, but still frequently they would. And why? Because they also fear solitude more than the internal emotional, that are introverts. They value companionship highly. They enjoy taking care of others. They adapt to social structure easily. And they prioritize emotional climate over logistics. So they often end up being taken for granted, overgiving, losing freedom, and becoming emotional stabilizers for people with unresolved trauma. So external emotional men are also likely to accept, but with slightly more boundaries than the internal emotional men. So, in summary, which men accept this late segment 1 woman that comes to their doorstep offering herself to you, but with 35 years old or 40 years old? Well, the ones who are most likely to accept are the internal emotional and the external emotional, and the least likely to accept her are the external rational and the internal rational. This is crucial because it means that the men who are psychologically best for these women that are the internal rational and external rational are the men least likely to accept them once they are divorced and with children. While the men most likely to accept them, the internal emotional and external emotional, are the ones who are not ideal for the long-term structural family model that these women once desired. So this mismatch creates enormous social suffering, and it is one of the consequences of this mix and conquer. So let's see what mix and conquer reveals about modern dating. And have in mind the numbers that I introduced at the beginning. When people from different maturity levels, personality types, and life trajectories are mixed together, everyone blames the wrong causes. Everyone dates the wrong partners. Everyone projects their wounds onto the wrong people. And everyone becomes more frustrated. So segment 1 men that belongs to segment 1 feel invisible. They cannot find any segment 1 woman because they are not available anymore. They are out of the market. They had been out of the market for the last 15 years. If you are a millennial. So imagine the other generations. Segment 1 women feel unfairly judged. Segment 2 and segment 3 women feel entitled to segment 1 men, but they can no longer match with them. Segment 4 dominates the dating landscape through noise and drama. That is the great part of the people available in dating apps belongs to segment 4. I mean, all segment 4 that are constantly having short circuits in all their failed attempts of relationships. They come in and out of dating apps and single events and discotheques. They are always like short circuits walking, and many times that is the people that you actually find while you are actually looking for segment 1 type of women that are not available anymore. So this is not a moral problem, it is a structural one. So what can high maturity men do in this situation, this context? Well, a high maturity man must understand that he himself is rare in this scenario, and also must understand that compatible women are extremely rare. Only 2.5% of worldwide women is the number of potential women that every man belonging to any segment is looking for. 100% of worldwide men are looking for these women, this 2.5% of worldwide population of women, and even less because that is the total number of women. We have to extract from that 2.5% the age range from 18 to 35. That is the one who men are looking for. So maybe it's 1% of worldwide population. So you can make your numbers in your head about the level of difficulty of this pursuit. So a man must understand as well that his loneliness is structural, not personal. And his standards are not unrealistic. They are biological and psychologically coherent. It's just a numbers problem. So a high maturity man must not waste his energy on late segment relationships, that is, segment 3 or segment 4. And many men that, like MGTOWs, that go their own way, they already decided to even stop losing time with segment 2. That are good women but incompatible, that high demanding kind of women in which you are going to have to work in the relationship to change the way you are, adapt the way you are, adjust the way you are in order to please her, in order to get her into a relationship with you. If you are compatible, if you are a child or attractive or have money. And so also a high maturity man must invest in building meaning in his life, to building stability and purpose outside the dating market. The world is no longer aligned with the relational needs of men like him. So he must build a life that doesn't depend on the existence of segment 1 women in the marketplace. A good life is still possible, but the strategy must evolve. Otherwise, there is a guaranteed suffering and frustration. So, this is the truth nobody wants to say. The men who want stable, reciprocal, long-term love can no longer find it, not because something is wrong with them, but because the structural reality of society has erased their compatible partners. So understanding this is not bitterness. It is simply clarity. Observing reality with honesty and clarity. And clarity is the first step toward building a life that respects your nature instead of punishing it. So again, if you enjoy this reflection, please like this video and subscribe to the channel to support my work. Much courage, take care, and see you in the next one.